I think every single Muslim should really understand this. And even if you're not Muslim, if you really understand this, it will start to change everything in your life. And not only will you be able to walk your life with more respect, more power, feel more spiritual, but also feel like you're more in control. And so this is what I just thought of this idea right now. And it's that we should never be asking for things. Okay? We should be receiving. Now, you need to fully understand this philosophy that I just came up with right now before you get into a judgment, right? You should never be asking people, is what I mean. You don't ask people. So the problem is, a lot of us, we beg people for so many different things. Oh, can you do this? And we rely on other people to get things done. And this is especially for those of you who are people who believe in God, people who believing in just God. All right, that's it. That's God. Okay. Before, I used to say before a higher power, whatever you think, but like no, I find the truth to be Allah. So that's what I believe. And if you do your research and if you actually search, I believe you will come to that conclusion as well. But if you stop begging other people and say, oh, okay, and relying on them, and instead start relying on God and start relying on Allah, then everything else will change. And you will walk around as if you're indifferent or as if you don't need anybody else. And that's very attractive, right? If you walk around during the day, if you walk in your household, if you walk with the air of confidence, and that confidence comes from knowing that you have your Lord who is taking care of you, because He is taking care of everything. Think of a centipede. Think of a cockroach. Think of a spider who eats flies, right? Think of all these things that are being taken care of. Think of you when you are in a low moment, when you're in a down moment, when you're in a dire moment, when you're in a moment where you feel like there's no way out. And, miraculously, something happened. One thing led to another. And you don't even know how it happened. And the only way that you can explain it, the only way you can justify is that, it's God took care of me. God looked out for me. And so when you really start to cultivate that relationship with God, with Allah, and you really just understand that, the only one who is responsible for everything and who's responsible for my survival, responsible for what I want, is really the Lord. Because if the Lord does not want me to have something, then I'm not going to have it. That's really what it is. And we forget this because we act like, we have all this power, we could do all these kinds of things. Yeah, until there's an earthquake, until there's a wind that blows everything out of the water, until there's a tornado, right? So, the human beings, we become so arrogant and we feel like, we're so powerful. And then God has to show us a message, right? Allah has to show us, you know what? Oh, He doesn't have to, but He does, right? He punishes us to remind us, hey, did you forget? Did you forget who's really holding the strings here? And so instead of, and I know what happens is a lot of us, let's say in a situation where, let's say we're about to lose our job or get fired, or we did something wrong, or we are hoping for something better. And we start relying, because we become so low-minded, right? So our mindset becomes so low that we start looking at not simple-minded, but like, what I'm trying to say is like we become so narrow in our thinking and in our belief and in our perspective that we just start looking for people to help us. Oh, can you help me? Can you help me? And we just start panicking. But when you really understand this belief that, Allah, the Lord, is really who is in control of everything, and He's the one who will ensure my survival as long as I do my part, which is my best, then, I have nothing to worry about. And instead of relying on other people and just begging other people, you should be begging the Lord, and you should be asking the Lord. And so when you ask the Lord, you just receive everything, from other people. All right. It seems like you're receiving something. So let me give you this example. Imagine back in the days, and I always use examples back in the days because it makes people understand. Unfortunately, people nowadays, you go on social media and you forget the nature of man, and you forget simple examples. And so the only way that you would understand is if I go back in time and like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I forgot that we're human beings and not this like this weird inside of this weird vortex or whatever. Let's go back in time, okay? And it's simple to understand if we go back in time. Let's go back in time and imagine there's a king. Imagine you're a king and there's a king. There's two, you're both kings, okay? And you want something from the other king, right? Let's say you're about to go through a drought, or you are going through a drought, okay? And you know that the other king has, the resources that you need, wheat, grain, whatever, right? Cattle, whatever you need, right? He has, and he owes you a favor or whatever, right? Or he got your back. Well, so you go ahead and you ask him, right? You'll say, hey, I know I'm in a dire situation. My people need, help. Can you help us? Okay, and you ask the king. Now, you may have asked the king, but you will receive it through other means. The king is not going to come himself and give you the cattle and give you all the stuff. He's going to send his people to do it. And so in this analogy, I'm sure you're a smart person. I'm sure you understand what I mean by now already. In this analogy, the king is the Lord. The king is Allah. You will ask Allah and you receive through the people. Oh my God, that's a bar. That's fire, man. Oh my. I'm actually in a gas station, about to fill up some gas, driving around. But I find it's nice to get some sun and record these perspectives and share my ideologies with you, because it's very important for us to share something when we feel like we may have discovered something or we have learned something. It's important to share. And I believe, and I know if you ask the Lord, especially if you're Muslim, we all know this, right? Asking Allah in tahajjud. Why do we neglect tahajjud? It's so funny. It's so funny to me. It's like, we all know, oh yeah, this is the cheat code to getting what you want, but we don't do it. It's stupid. Okay, it's literally stupid. All right, but really understand is that hopefully this just helps you understand. Like, if you needed something, you would ask the king and you would receive it through his people. So you ask Allah and you receive it through his people, which is us and everybody else. That's how you get it, right? Allah is in control over everything. This is how you really increase your faith. And when you increase your faith, guess what happens? Things start happening. Things start falling into place. And what happens is we become so arrogant, we forget that it's Allah who's really taking care of everything. And then we lose everything. And then guess what? Everybody turns to God when there's nobody to turn to, right? It's like we leave God as a last option, which is saddening. It's sad. It's pathetic, right? We should be turning to God first, the Lord first. That shows true loyalty. That shows true faith. That shows true love. When you go to the person, when you go to the one who is really taking care of you. That's really what it is. We focus so much on increasing our relationship with our spouses, with our friends, with our family. Like, oh, you know what? This is how we improve our relationship. Every date night, every week. And then the kids, we do this. We do all that, but we forget. If we cultivate the relationship with the Most High, everything else falls into place. Literally. And if you're a person who likes doing something that, like taking down a big domino and all the small dominoes fall apart, if you're that type of person who's strategic and you're smart and you realize, why am I going to do all these small things when I could do this one thing and everything else will fall in line? Well, guess what? That one thing is building our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That it means that you pray tahajjud. That also means that you ask Allah and you receive through the people. And you walk in the world with confidence because you know the King of the world, the Lord of the worlds, the only one has got your back. Assalamu alaikum.